Well, hey guys, my name is Ray, and it is my pleasure in these next few moments to get to walk you through the generosity ladder. Now, the generosity ladder is a tool that assists us in evaluating and looking at our life in a couple different places. In the area of giving, and so giving in our finances, but also giving of our time and our generosity in the way of service within the context of the church. Now, today, for the sake of making it easy, we're going to look at this in the context of giving in our finances. So, here we go. Over these next few moments, I'd love for you to just imagine that I'm in the room with you there as we take some notes and as we walk through this particular tool. All right, so if you would, on your paper, write a ladder or draw out a ladder that looks very similar to the one you're seeing on the screen right here. And then what I'd love for you to do is, in addition to that, is add 5 rungs to your ladder. Each of those rungs are going to be steps that we're going to take as we travel along this generosity ladder. All right? So the first step is this: a first-time giver. All right? This is someone who gives to the church for the first time. In other words, you haven't been giving consistently. You haven't been giving at all to the church. Being a first-time giver is you saying, I am going to give. But here's the thing about being a first-time giver. You can only be a first-time giver one time. Right? There's not a second first-time give. It's once that you yourself are giving. That's the bottom rung of our ladder, but it's also the first step of our ladder as we move towards full life generosity. All right? Now, the next step that we see is this of a consistent giver. All right? A consistent giver is someone who gives consistently, but they don't have a set number that they give. In other words, it could be a little bit like this. I'm going to see whatever I have in my wallet or maybe in my car seat on the way to church, and that's what I'm going to give today. You see, there's no set number for the amount that's going to be given. And sometimes, here's the problem with that, is that this can become just a convenience offering instead of an intentional offering. And that's what we're going to see with our next step above that, is being a percentage giver. Now, we're adding intentionality to our generosity. We're saying, in all my intention, I'm going to give this certain percentage of my income to the church as I am called to do. All right? Now, from there, understand that this percentage giver is not quite yet giving perhaps a full tithe. And that's going to be our next step on the ladder. So we have first-time giver, consistent giver, percentage giver, then we have a tither. Now, in the past, you may have said, well, you know what? I give to the church. I'm a tither. But can I make kind of a blunt statement? If you're not giving 10% of your income to the church, you're not yet a tither. But once you do, you are then giving 10%. That's literally the definition of a tither. One who gives 10% of something. You can check it out in Webster's dictionary. But out of that, you are now saying, I am committing at least 10% of my income back to the church. And again, what we see in that is intentionality in your obedience. You're saying, Lord, I see this in your word and what you've called me to do, and so therefore I'm going to consistently give, but also be intentional in what I'm giving. Now, here's the thing. Once we've become a tither, it doesn't mean that we've arrived. It doesn't mean that we have accomplished all that we can in our generosity. There is actually one more step to this ladder. And that next step is this, is a sacrificial giver. You know, Jesus sacrificed everything for us. The idea of being a sacrificial giver is that you've been blessed with so much that you are then able to give in a way that is sacrificial. Beyond what you're called to do, right? And so what we see in Scripture is that we're called to be tithers, but perhaps we are able to give even more above and beyond that. Again, understanding that God is calling us to do that. His Scripture calls us to be cheerful in our giving, not begrudgingly or angry about it, but that we're excited and ready and cheerful to give the things that we've been given in return back to Him. So, I want to ask you a couple questions as we look at this ladder that's here on the page. The first one is this: what does a ladder do? Well, a ladder helps us to get to a new place. It helps us to kind of get to higher places and higher ground. It gives us a different view as well. But here's the next question for you. How do we climb a ladder? Well, the safest and most successful way to climb a ladder is one step at a time. So if you're sitting on the ground and you're like, there's no way I'm going to be a tither this coming Sunday, or there's no way that I'm even going to be a percentage giver this coming Sunday, that's perfectly fine, because we want you to understand that you need to take your next best step in your generosity. And so what I mean by that is that if you haven't been or become a first-time giver, that's the step you need to take. If you have given that one time to the church, but you're not in a consistent rhythm of giving, then what is the next best step for you to take to step forward in your obedience of generosity? What does that look like for you, your family, and ultimately your wallet? Now, here's the third thing that I want to ask you as we kind of close this out. How does our perspective change at the top of a ladder? Well, when you get to the top of a ladder, you see things in a completely different way. Can I challenge you in just the next few moments? That when you look at your life and you look at your finances or even your time in a way of being consistent, or even in the way of being extremely generous, you're going to find that your view of everything else is going to change. That you're going to look for opportunities to be generous to those around you. You're going to look for opportunities to be a giver of your time and to serve within the church. And it is an amazing transformation in our lives when we're able to freely give to those around us. I would encourage you to be open-handed with the things that God has given you instead of closed-fisted. You know, those are two completely different postures. When we're open-handed, we're saying, all of this is yours. When we're closed-handed, we're saying, all of this is mine. But I can tell you from what we see in Scripture and what Jesus taught, that we are to be open-handed. So with that, what is your next best step in the area of generosity?